Okay, so welcome to the lecture 3 of theory of computation. So in this lecture, we will go through what exactly an automation is, then model of discrete automation, then types of automation, then finite automation, then representation of finite automation. So what exactly a finite automation is? So an automation is a system. So an automation is a system in which energy, materials and information are transformed and transmitted to solve a task without direct participation of man. Okay. So an automation is also called as automata in plural. Okay. So an automation is a system. System means what? System means set of components which interact with each other to accomplish a task. So when we hear the term system, actually laptop or desktop comes into our mind, being a technical student. So being a non-technical student, our human body system comes into our mind. So what exactly a human body system? It consists of hands, legs, eye, ear, nose, mouth. So these are set of components, okay, which interact with each other. So hand, legs, eye, ear, brain, all these interact with each other to accomplish a task. Similar to human body system, an automation is also a system. Okay, so in which energy, materials, and information are transformed to solve a particular task. So when we hear the term automation, what comes into our mind? Automatic. Okay, so automatic watch, automatic cold drink filling machine, automatic chocolate vending machine. So these are some mechanical automations I have told you. So when you will come to computer science, then you will, or information technology, you will come across a hospital management system or hospital automation, college automation, library automation, banking automation. So in an automation, it consists of, or it is actually a system in which energy materials are transformed to solve a particular task. So for example, let me take a simple example of cold drink filling machine. Okay, so here initially the empty bottles are placed at a particular location. So these are the empty bottles in which cold drinks is not filled. So initially we will start from the empty bottles. Then through a conveyor belt, these empty bottles will move to another state, okay, or another position. So in that position, the cold drinks are filled into the bottle. Cold drinks are filled into the bottle. Next, it will go to another state or another place where the caps and gas will be filled into the bottle. So next, it will go move to the another place where filled cold drinks bottles are there, where filled cold drinks bottles are there. So here you see, here there is a, this is the final state. Okay, so usually the final state is represented by a double circle and the initial state is represented by a circle pointed by an arrow mark, and the other states are represented by normally through a circle. Okay, so this is the initial state, so we can name it as, let's say, q0, this one is q1, this one is q2, we can give any name. Okay, this one is qf or final state. Okay, so now you see here there are, it is a system. System means set of components, okay, which interacted with each other to solve a particular task without direct participation of man. So man will not be directly participate, but indirectly the man has to switch on the system so that the system will work. So let me give you one more technical example. So here, before going to the technical example, here you observe what are the things. So one is state, one is initial state, one is final state, then another one is state transition function. State transition function gives you what? After taking an input, the state changes to which next state. So initially, the initial state will be the current state, and at the end the final state will be the final state, or the final state will be the current state. Sorry. So next, let me give you one more example. So in this example, let me erase it first, then I will go through the example. So now you see, suppose I want to design an automation that will accept all the binary strings divisible by 2. So all the binary strings divisible by 2 means 2 is divisible by 2. So 2's binary equivalent is 1 0. Next 4 is divisible by 4, 4 is divisible by 2, so its binary equivalent is 1 0 0. 6 is divisible by 2, 1 1 0. So 8 is divisible by 2, 1 0 0 0. Similarly, all the even numbers are divisible by 2. So here you can see one pattern that all the binary strings which is terminated with a 0 is divisible by 2. So here what we can see, we can draw a finite automation for this one. So let me draw a finite automation. This is the initial state. Let the state name is Q0. So before that, as many number of zeros or ones comes over here, it will be in the same state Q0. But when it accepts a final 0, it will go to the final state Q. So the final state is usually represented by a double circle. Okay, so now you see, let me check whether this string is divisible by 2 or not. 1 1 0. So now let me check this one. So 1. So first Q0 is the initial state. So Q0 will become the current state. So Q0 by taking 1 as input. What is the next state? So Q0 by taking 1 as input, it will come to Q0. Now Q0 again, it will accept the next one. So Q0 again 1 will move to the next state Q0. Now Q0 will accept the 0. So 0. Q0 by taking 0 as input. Q0 by taking 0 as input. What is the next state? QF. So now you see, starting from the initial state, after processing the string means I have already told you in the second lecture, that string is a collection of alphabets, okay, or finite concatenation of symbols is called as a string. So the string 110 is accepted by this finite automation. It means 110 is a even number, okay, or even binary string. So I hope all of you have understood what is an automation. So here also see, it is a component, so which interact with each other to solve a particular task. So this is how an automation is represented. So next, model of discrete automation. So the discrete automation takes some input, so that I have already shown you in the previous example. Then the automation may be in some state Q0, Q1, QF. You can also represent it in another symbols, no problem. So usually the states are represented through the symbol Q. Okay. So it produces some output. It may produce one output or more than one output. So the discrete automation has input. So at each discrete instant of time, it takes finite number of discrete values, that is I1 to IP. So which is denoted by input alphabet, that is summation. Output. So a discrete automation may produce one or more outputs. So O1 to OQ are the outputs of the model. Next, a discrete automation must have some states. Okay. So at each instant of time, the automation can be in any one of the states. So as I have shown you in the previous example. So the states are Q1 to Qn. So Qn may be anything. It should be greater than equal to 1. Okay. So state is an instantaneous description of the system which gives all relevant information necessary to determine how the system can evolve from that point on. So here you see in the previous example, in this example, a state. So this state represents what? This state represents, it is the initial state. So after taking 1 as input, it goes to which state? It again comes to the initial state Q0. Okay. So Q0 by taking 0 as input, it goes to which state? It goes to the final state QF. So a state represents the instantaneous description relating to all the information that it contains. So next, state relation. State relation means by taking one input from Q0, it goes to Q0. Suppose it takes a input 0, so it goes to Q1. So this is the state relation. Means after taking one input, it goes to which state. So if there are multiple states, suppose Q1 to Q10, so by taking one input from Q1, it may go to Q4, it may go to Q3, it may go to Q9. Okay. So this is denoted by the state relation. Another one is output relation. So output is either related to the present state only or to both input and present state. So based on whether the output is dependent on only the present state or both input and present state, the automation are of two types, or the machines are of two types. One is More machine, another one is Milli machine. What is a More machine? An automation in which output depends only on the present state. Such kind of machines are called as More machine. Whereas the automation in which output depends on both present state and current input, those machines are called as Milli machines. So in after two or three videos, we will go through More machine and Milli machine in detail. The next, types of automation. So based on the number of states, means how many number of states are there in the automation, and number of transitions between the states, automation is broadly classified into two categories. One is finite automation, another one is infinite automation. So finite automation means the number of states and transitions are countable or finite. Infinite automation means the number of states and number of transitions are infinite. Okay, so here you see I will ask you one question. What is infinite? Suppose you may say that the number of stars are infinite. Why it is infinite? Because we do not want to count them. Okay, suppose I will ask you how many hairs are there in your head. So you may say that are infinite number of hairs, but can't you count the number of hairs? Yes, if you want, you can count it. But if I will similarly, if I will ask you to count the number of sugars in a cup, you are saying that there are infinite number of sugar drops are there. So, but that is not infinite. We do not want to count. That's why we are telling that infinite. So here we will not go through infinite automation. Throughout this course, we will go through finite automation. So the finite automation is again classified into two categories. One is deterministic finite automation, which is called as DFA, and another one is called as non-deterministic finite automation, which is called as NFA. So in the next lecture, we will go through deterministic finite automation and non-deterministic finite automation in detail. Okay, so let us go through first what exactly finite automation means. So a system containing only finite number of states and transitions among them is called finite state transition system. And a finite state transition system can be modeled abstractly by a mathematical model that is called as finite automation. So what is the definition of finite automation? An automation is said to be finite if the number of states and transition between the states is finite. So let us go through the model of finite automation. So finite automation consists of three things. One is input tape, one is reading writing head, another one is finite control. So now the input tape is divided into a number of cells. So with each cell is capable of storing an input alphabet. So you just remind the previous example what I have given to you. This the automation which accepts all the binary strings which are divisible by 2. So let me take a binary string 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. So it is divisible by 2. So if you want to check whether this string is divisible by 2 or not, so these string symbols are placed in the input tape. Okay, so each cell contains one symbol. Then what we have done, I will just go through that. Okay, here you see, so first what we have done, we have started from the initial state. Then we have read one symbol. So this symbol should be placed in the input tape. Okay, so first we will read one symbol. So this read can be performed, read operation can be performed by using the reading head. So the reading head reads the first symbol. So if these cells are blank, so let me consider this, considering the reading head's position. So I will first read this cell. So 1 will be given as input. So the finite control has the knowledge of all the states, initial state, final state, and transition among the states. Okay, so the initial state q0 will read the symbol 1 through the reading head. So the reading head moves from left to right. So in more complicated or more sophisticated finite automations, the reading head may move from the towards the left side or may move towards the right hand side. But for simplicity, in finite automation, in our finite automation, we will assume that it moves from left to right. So the same thing. So a finite automation conceptually consists of three parts. What are the three parts? The first part is input tape. So the input tape is used to hold the input string. The tape is divided into finite number of cells. Each cell holds a symbol from the input string. The end squares contain the end marker. So here you see the end square, this contains the end marker, this contains this is an end marker. So left one you are having a C like symbol and right one you are having a dollar like symbol. So that it will come to know that this is the end of the input. Okay. So squares contains the end markers, this on the left hand side and dollar at the right hand side. So absence of end markers indicates that the tape is of infinite length. The next symbol is reading head. So for reading head is used for reading the symbols from the tape. So the simpler automata can only read the input one symbol at a time from left to right, but it cannot change the symbols. Okay, it can only read. That's why the name is reading head. So if it can change, then it should be read write head. But here it is only reading head. Here you see it is only reading head. Means it can be able to read the symbols only. Next, powerful versions can both read left to right or right to left and also change the input. So next, the finite control. So this is the third thing, which takes the symbols under the read-write head as input and itself consists of three things, as I have already told you. So what are those three things? It has the knowledge of finite number of states, means what are the states that is present in the automation that is stored in finite control. Okay, the next one is the current state. So initially the current state is set to start state or starting state. Then state transition function. So state transition function means after taking one input, what should be the next state? That will be represented by state transition function. So here you see, here I have shown you the state transition function through a transition graph. Q0 by taking 0, what is the next state? Qf. Q0 by taking 1 as input, what is the next state? Q0. So this diagram is called as transition diagram or transition function. Okay, a transition function can be represented either by through a diagram or through a tabular form. Okay. So next, an automation processes a string on the tape by repeating the following actions until the tape head has traversed the entire string. So how a string is processed? So this one I have already shown you in the example. So first we will start from Q0. So it will read the first symbol from the input tape, let's say 1. So Q0 by taking 1, it goes to Q0. Then Q0 again will read 1. So it will go through Q0. Then suppose it gets a 0. So Q0 by taking 0, it goes to Q1. So how it does? How an automation processes a string? So first, the reading head reads the current tape cell and sends the symbols found there to the finite control. Then the tape head moves to the next cell. So the finite control takes the symbol S and the current state and consults the state transition function to get the next state. So first what it will do, the reading head will read a symbol from the input tape. Then it will send that symbol S to the finite control. So the finite control will consult with the current state. What is the current state? Then it consults with the state transition function and it checks for the current state, for the current input, what is the next state. Okay. So now the next state becomes the current state. So once the entire string has been processed, the state in which the automation enters is examined. If it is an accept or final state, then the input string is accepted, otherwise the string is rejected. So here you see in the previous example, we have started processing the string from Q0, the string was 110, okay. So after processing the whole string, we are reaching to a state. Then we will check whether the state is final state or not. Yes, QF was the final state, then 110 is accepted by the finite automation. It means 110 is divisible by 2. Okay, so this was our running example. Okay, so I hope all of you have understood how an finite automation processes a string. Next, representation of finite automation. So a finite automation can be represented by two ways. One is transition system or transition diagram or transition graph. So this one I have already shown you in the running example. Okay, so the transition system or transition diagram or transition graph, and another one is transition table. So first, what exactly a transition diagram is? So let us go through that. So a transition diagram or transition graph is a finite directed labeled graph. So the number of states are finite, okay, and the graph is directed as well as the graph is labeled, okay, in which each vertex represents a state. So there are how many vertices? Three vertices, Q0, Q1, Q2. Okay, so out of these three vertices, which one is the initial vertex? Q0 is the initial vertex. So here you see initial state or initial state. Initial state is represented by a circle and an arrow mark pointed towards it. So you see here we are having a arrow mark pointed towards it. So Q0 is the initial state. Final state is represented by double circle. So here which one is the final state? Q1 is the final state. Then next is other states are represented by circles. So here you see Q2 is neither a final state nor an initial state. So it is simply represented by a circle. So now the directed edges indicate transition between the states. So here you see Q0 by taking one as input. What is the next state? Q1. So the directed edge indicates the transition between states. So which is labeled with input or output. So here you see 0 is the input, 0 is input and 1 is output. And also the output may be absent. Okay, so sometimes it may be labeled with only inputs. For example, here you see. So if only one symbol is written, then it represents an input. Okay, final state is represented. So these things I have already told you: initial state, final state, and other states. Next, let us go through transition table. So it is basically a tabular representation of transition function. Okay. So in the previous one, we have seen that it is a graphical representation. Okay. It's a directed labeled graph. Whereas here we will represent it in terms of a table. Right. So rows correspond to states. Here you see the rows represent states. So this is a row, this is a row, this is a row. So it represents a state Q0, Q1, Q2. So if I will draw this transition diagram in terms of a transition table, it will contain three rows. Okay, and columns correspond to input symbols. So here you see how many input symbols are there. Input symbol may be either 0 or may be either 1. So here there are two input symbols, one is 0 and another one is 1. So now the entries correspond to next state. So Q0 by taking 0 as input. What is the next state? Go to here. Q0 by taking 0 as input. The next state is again Q0. So here you see. The next state is again Q0. So Q0 by taking 0 as input. The next state is Q0. Next, Q0 by taking 1 as input. Q0 by taking 1 as input. What is the next state? So Q0 by taking 1 as input, either it may go to Q1 or it may go to Q2. So here I have written Q1, Q2. Okay. Next, Q1 by taking 0 as input. What is the next state? So here you come. Q1 by taking 0 as input. The next state is Q1. Okay, so Q1 by taking 0 as input, the next state is Q1. Now Q1 by taking 1 as input, what is the next state? You come to the transition diagram. So Q1 by taking 1 as input, so there is no input 1 for Q1. Okay, so it is 5. Okay. Next Q2 by taking 0 as input, what is the next state? So here you see Q2 by taking 1 as input is there, but 0 as input, there is no such transition. Okay. So Q2 by taking 0 as input, it's 5. Q2 by taking 1 as input, it's Q1. So Q2 by taking 1 as input, the next state is Q1. So I hope all of you have understood this much, and for today we will stop over here.